For over 100 years, almost every botany textbook on Earth told the same story. Watermelon came from the Kalahari Desert, a wild African melon that slowly, over centuries, turned sweet. That story was repeated in classrooms, in seed catalogs, in documentaries, and in 2021, a team of researchers quietly proved it wrong. They didn't find a new plant. They found an old one that had been misidentified for over a century, sitting in a herbarium the entire time. This is the story of Citrullus lanatus, the plant you know as watermelon, and what happens when you decide to grow one in your own backyard, starting from a single black seed and ending, almost exactly 80 days later, with something that can weigh more than a newborn calf. Genetically, watermelon belongs to the Cucurbitaceae family, the same family as cucumbers, squash, and pumpkins, but it behaves nothing like its cousins once it takes root. A single vine can stretch 6 to 10 feet in a single growing season, sending out tendrils that grip fences, stakes, even neighboring plants, searching for something to hold onto, while the fruit beneath it quietly swells to 20, 30, sometimes 50 pounds. And that reclassification in 2021? A team led by a researcher at the University of Munich, working with dried specimens from an 1857 expedition, matched the DNA of watermelon's true wild ancestor, not to the sweet-tasting Kalahari melon everyone assumed, but to a bitter, pale-fleshed relative called the Kordofan melon, found not in South Africa, but in Sudan, in the region once known as Kordofan. It changes where we think agriculture itself may have started shifting a plant from wild and inedible to cultivated and prized. Here is where it gets interesting for anyone standing in their backyard with a seed packet. Watermelon doesn't grow well almost anywhere. It demands soil temperatures above 70 degrees Fahrenheit just to germinate, full unblocked sun for a minimum of 8 hours a day, and a growing window of roughly 80 to 100 frost-free days depending on variety. Push it into the wrong soil, the wrong month, or the wrong spacing, and you'll get a vine that looks lush and produces almost nothing. Most home growers in the United States, the UK, and Canada plant in late spring once nighttime temperatures hold reliably above 60 degrees Fahrenheit. In the Philippines and similar tropical climates, watermelon can often be planted year-round, provided drainage is aggressive enough to keep the roots from sitting in water. It thrives across USDA zones 3 through 11 as an annual, which means almost anyone, almost anywhere, can grow one, if they understand what the plant is actually asking for. A single watermelon plant needs somewhere between 18 and 20 square feet of space to fully express its genetics. Crowd 2 vines within 3 feet of each other, which is what most seed packets visually imply with their small illustrated garden beds. And both plants will compete underground for the same nutrients and moisture before a single flower even opens. Soil matters just as much, but not in the way most people assume. Watermelon doesn't want rich, heavy, moisture-retentive soil the way tomatoes do. It wants sandy loam with excellent drainage, a pH between 6.0 and 6.8, and soil that warms quickly in spring. Heavy clay soils trap water around the root crown and invite fungal disease before the vine ever has a chance to flower. Raised beds or mounded hills, 4 to 6 inches high, solve this almost immediately by letting excess water drain away from the base of the plant. Timing follows a strict internal clock. Seeds go into soil once daytime temperatures consistently sit above 70 degrees Fahrenheit. Germination itself takes 7 to 10 days. From there, expect roughly 80 days to harvest for early varieties and up to 100 days for larger heirloom types, which means a late spring planting typically reaches harvest in mid to late summer, right in the window most home gardeners least expect. And this is where researchers at Cornell University's Cooperative Extension have spent decades studying something most gardeners get wrong at the finish line: how to actually know when a watermelon is ready. Thumping the melon and listening for a hollow sound is the advice everyone has heard, and it's the least reliable method. According to their long-running horticultural research, is a combination of 3 visual signs happening at once: The curly tendril nearest the fruit's stem turns from green to brown and dries out completely. The pale patch on the melon's underside, the spot that touched soil, shifts from white to a deep cream or yellow, and the skin itself loses its glossy shine and turns dull and matte. When all three signs align, the melon is cut, never twisted or pulled, which can damage the vine, using clean shears, leaving 2 inches of stem attached to slow moisture loss. Harvested watermelon doesn't ripen further off the vine, unlike tomatoes or bananas, which means timing this moment correctly is the entire game. Post-harvest, whole watermelons store at room temperature for about a week, or up to 2 to 3 weeks refrigerated, with flavor and texture holding steady the whole time. Commercial operations harvest in bulk, cure melons briefly in shaded, ventilated storage to toughen the rind for transport, and ship within days. Home growers have the luxury commercial farms don't. Eating a melon within hours of cutting it from the vine, at its genetic peak, something almost no store-bought watermelon has ever experienced. Watermelon contains more citrulline, an amino acid, than almost any other food source on Earth, concentrated most heavily in the white rind, the part almost everyone throws away. Researchers at the University of Kentucky, publishing in the Journal of Agricultural and Food Chemistry, found that watermelon juice supplementation was associated with reduced muscle soreness and improved recovery time in athletes following intense exercise, a finding tied directly to citrulline's role in the body's nitric oxide production, which relaxes blood vessels and improves circulation. Then there's lycopene, the compound responsible for watermelon's deep red color. Gram for gram, ripe watermelon contains more lycopene than raw tomatoes, one of the most studied antioxidants in nutritional science, with ongoing research examining its relationship to cardiovascular health and cellular protection against oxidative stress. This is framed by researchers strictly as an area of active nutritional science. Not a medical claim, not a cure, simply a compound worth understanding. And the water content, 92% of the fruit by weight, isn't just a hydration bonus. It means a single serving delivers meaningful fluid and electrolyte content, alongside potassium and vitamins A and C, which is precisely why, for thousands of years before refrigeration or bottled water existed, watermelon functioned as a literal water source for people crossing arid land. In parts of the Kalahari and Sahara, wild melons have historically served as an emergency water and food source for livestock and wildlife during dry seasons, a role documented in agricultural and botanical field research for over a century. Even today, the rind and seeds that home growers discard are increasingly repurposed as livestock feed in compost material, reducing food waste from a crop where, by some estimates, only about 30% of the harvested plant, the sweet flesh, is what typically reaches a human plate. Watermelon seeds have been found inside Egyptian tombs, including the tomb of Tutankhamun, placed there deliberately. Ancient Egyptians believed the fruit could sustain the dead on their journey into the afterlife, and its likeness appears carved into temple walls dating back nearly 4,000 years. From Egypt, it moved along trade routes into the Mediterranean, then into India and China by roughly the 10th century, where China would eventually become, and remains today, the largest watermelon-producing country in the world, growing more than 60 million metric tons annually, over half of global production. In the United States, watermelon carries a more complicated legacy. Brought west through the transatlantic slave trade and cultivated extensively by enslaved and later freed black farmers across the American South, watermelon became, for a time after emancipation, a genuine symbol of self-sufficiency and economic independence, something a family could grow, sell, and survive on without needing anyone's permission. That same success was then twisted by racist caricature in the decades that followed, a deliberate distortion historians have worked to document and correct. Understanding that history changes how the fruit sits in your hand. Seed saving is where this becomes personal. Open pollinated watermelon varieties, as opposed to hybrid F1 seeds sold by most major retailers, allow you to save seeds from your best fruit and replant them true to type year after year, something farmers did for thousands of years before seed patents existed. Scoop seeds from a fully ripe melon, rinse off the pulp, and dry them completely on a paper towel for 1 to 2 weeks, before storing in a sealed, labeled container somewhere cool and dark. Properly dried watermelon seeds can remain viable for 4 to 6 years. Hybrid seeds cannot be reliably saved this way, which means every packet purchased is a packet that must be purchased again. That distinction matters more than it sounds. The global watermelon seed market is valued in the hundreds of millions of dollars annually, and open-pollinated heirloom varieties, the kind you can save indefinitely, represent a genuine act of independence from that system, one seed at a time. Most people will eat 100 watermelons in their lifetime and never once ask where that plant came from, what it survived, or what it's quietly capable of. You now know. What you grow with that knowledge is entirely yours to decide.